Number 9. MV Logos. Operation Mobilization is a Christian missionary organization that travels the world on former passenger ships and distributes spiritual literature. Its first ship was built in Denmark in 1949 and originally operated under another company as the Umanek. For 22 years, it served as a passenger and freight carrier that ferried people and goods between Norway and Greenland. In 1971, Operation Mobilization bought the vessel, renamed it MV Logos, and repurposed it for missionary work. Over the next 17 years, the ship visited 258 ports in over 100 countries. Its career came to an end in 1988 when it hit a rocky shoal in the Beagle Channel after departing from Ushuaia, Argentina, which sits at the southernmost tip of South America. The Chilean Navy managed to rescue everyone aboard and later said it was a miracle that nobody was injured while abandoning the heavily listing ship. But the damage to the Logos and the region's frequent storms made salvaging it impossible. Logos was declared a complete loss and left at the crash site, where it was at the mercy of the elements. Waves persistently battered the vessel, causing it to deteriorate over time. The rusting, partially capsized wreck remains visible today. Its dining room still contains Bibles and cameras that were left behind when the missionaries scrambled to leave the ship and reach safety. Number 8. MV Captain Leonidas. Located in the Pacific Ocean in southern Chile's Patagonia region, the Messier Channel is a fjord that connects to numerous bays and other channels. It runs between two mountainous coasts and is dotted with many small islands and lighthouses. While many commercial ships pass through the waterway, navigators face constant rain along with frequent storms and closures. But these dangers were not the reason a cargo ship called MV Captain Leonidas ran aground in 1963. Built in Norway in 1937, the Greek-owned vessel was carrying sugar from the Chilean port of Santos to Valparaiso 26 years later, when it collided with some rocks. As it turned out, the captain deliberately crashed the ship in hopes of sinking it and collecting on the insurance. But things didn't go as planned, and instead of slipping beneath the waves, Captain Leonidas remained mostly above water. The crooked captain went to jail for his crimes and lost his license for life. Meanwhile, the wreck was left in place where it remains today, sitting upright as it deteriorates with time. It even has plants growing on it as it slowly loses its battle against nature and the elements. Number 7. Goda Via Shipwreck. In 2003, a fisherman found an ancient stone bench from a Roman ship in the waters off the Sri Lankan village of Goda Via. He alerted archaeologists to the discovery, and they conducted their first dive of the site 5 years later in 2008. The nearly 2,000-year-old wreck came to rest on the ocean floor during the 2nd century. At the time, Goda Via served as an important port along the famed Silk Road trade route. Rome had annexed Egypt to its empire during the previous century, leading to expanded trade with the east via the Red Sea, which connects to the Indian Ocean. What's left of the ship today could be described as a heaping mass of corroding metal bars that sits at a depth of 110 feet. Archaeologists have found glass ingots, pottery, and other ancient cargo that went down with it. Before the discovery of the Goda Via shipwreck, researchers had no physical evidence of ships that participated in the trade, according to Deborah Carlson, who led several expeditions to the wreck. She believes that the vessel was on its way to Rome and that it may have sank in rough seas, but these suspicions are unconfirmed. As of 2014, experts had yet to fully explore the wreck and hope to continue investigating and to retrieve some of it for further study. Number 6. Landing Craft Tank LCT-326. A British vessel called the Landing Craft Tank LCT-326 vanished in January 1943 with 14 crew members aboard while traveling from Troon, Scotland to Devonshire in southwest England. Military officials theorized that it had probably encountered bad weather or was struck by a mine and likely sank off the Isle of Man between Ireland and England. The weather was rough that night, according to the records, which further detail how LCT-326 vanished after a survey of the flotilla was conducted in the Irish Sea. It disappeared sometime between then and the next survey and remained missing for the next 77 years, leaving its fate to speculation. LCT-326 was finally found in 2020 when a team of marine scientists from Bangor University School of Ocean Sciences located it off Bardsley Island in northern Wales, more than 25 miles from where it was last seen. Recent findings reveal that crew members aboard the vessel's escort ship last saw in that area, despite official records claiming that it sank off the Isle of Man. Landing crafts were specialized maritime vehicles that were designed for transporting tanks and other armored vehicles. They were produced in large numbers during World War II, especially as the D-Day landings at Normandy approached. While LCT-326 sank before D-Day, it most likely participated in other amphibious missions. The wreck was found broken in two and resting at a depth of 300 feet. At the time of the discovery, its identity as LCT-326 was unconfirmed, but the wreck was located in the path of the flotilla that the landing craft was traveling with when it sank. Measuring 190 feet long and 33 feet wide, the sunken vessel matches the dimensions of the LCT-326. It also contains distinctive features of a British landing craft. LCT-326 was discovered in two pieces. It seems as though it broke in half, and that both sections remained afloat long enough to sink nearly 430 feet apart from each other. The cause of the sinking remains unclear, but experts continue to believe that heavy seas may have been responsible. Number 5. Endurance. Between 1901 and 1917, famed explorer Sir Ernest Shackleton led 3 expeditions to Antarctica. He and his crew embarked on their final journey in 1914 aboard a 3-masted wooden ship called the Endurance. Almost immediately after leaving South Georgia Island for the Weddell Sea, they ran into serious problems. It all started when they were slowed down by sea ice, and things only worsened from there until the ship was completely trapped in an ice floe. At first, Shackleton hoped that the Endurance would eventually free itself, but that didn't happen, and the pressure from the pack ice began to crush the vessel. He ordered his crew to abandon ship, and it wasn't long after they fled for safety that it disappeared beneath the surface. For years, the wreck's location was a mystery. It was finally discovered earlier this year, roughly 4 miles from where it sank. For the past 106 years, it sat on the cold, dark seafloor at a depth of 10,000 feet. Finding the Endurance was a complicated undertaking. A team of experts spent more than 2 weeks scouring the area with underwater drones while combating bitter cold temperatures and some of the world's iciest waters in hopes of detecting a sign of the ship. As the researchers expected, the vessel is damaged, but it's in remarkable condition for its age, owing to the frigid Antarctic conditions that helped to preserve it. Because the sea is so cold, it lacks the wood-eating organisms that are known to destroy wrecks elsewhere. The sunken ship is considered a protected monument under the Antarctic Treaty and will therefore remain at its current resting place. Number 4. MV Dayspring. Corpatch is a small town located along a natural harbor in the Scottish Highlands. Its waters are home to the MV Dayspring, a wrecked fishing boat that has sat along the shoreline since 2011, when it wrecked in bad weather. The vessel was built in 1975. It was used for catching mackerel and herring until 2000, and was moored to a local pier the following year. At the time, the boat was operational. Its owner, John Boyd, planned to turn it into a floating restaurant. But for some reason, the project fell through, and the Dayspring sat neglected for the better part of a decade. In 2008, the new owners bought the forlorn vessel and started repairing it, but a vicious storm ripped it from its mooring 3 years later and swept it to its crash site, where it remains to this day. Known to locals as the Old Boat of Cowell or the Goda Shipwreck, the Dayspring sits against the scenic backdrop of the surrounding mountains. The entire boat is visible and is accessible from all sides during low tide. In 2017, the Dayspring's buoy triggered its distress beacon. A large rescue effort ensued, and emergency workers eventually realized that the signal was coming from the long-abandoned wreck. It's unclear whether there are plans to ever move or scrap the lone vessel. Number 3. Grib shunden. Many lives were tragically lost when the Danish warship Grib shunden caught fire and sank to the bottom of the Baltic Sea in 1495. During the 1970s, the remains of a centuries-old vessel were found near the modern-day Swedish town of Ronneby. But it wasn't until 2013 that the wreck was positively identified as the long-missing Grib shunden. It's considered one of the best-preserved shipwrecks of its era, and may be the only vessel of its kind from that time period ever found. In 2015, more than 500 years after the ship sank to its watery grave, a wooden figurehead of a so-called sea monster was retrieved from the wreck. Equipped with lion-like ears and a crocodilian mouth, the 11-foot-long, 660-pound carving once sat proudly atop the ship's prow. Marcus Sandekier, who led the recovery effort, described the figurehead as unlike any other 15th century artifact ever found anywhere in the world. He told Discovery News that the creature may be a reflection or interpretation of the ship's name, which translates to Grib Dog or Griffin Hound. Archaeologists want to raise more of the wreck in hopes that it will help them learn more about 15th century shipbuilding techniques. Number 2. MV Liubov Orlova. Named after a Russian movie star, the MV Liubov Orlova was built in 1976 in Yugoslavia for a Soviet-based company. It functioned mainly as an Antarctic cruise ship until 2006, when it ran aground and was towed to Argentina's southernmost city of Ushuaia, which is located at the very bottom of South America. In 2010, the vessel was seized due to charter debts totaling over $250,000. It was impounded in Newfoundland, Canada, where it remained for the next 2 years. A company called Neptune International Shipping bought the ship in 2012, with plans to dismantle it. The Liubov Orlova was being towed to the Dominican Republic to be scrapped when the tugboat's tow line broke. Crew members tried but failed to reattach it as they struggled against 10-foot waves and 22-mile-per-hour winds. An offshore supply vessel managed to wrangle control of the ship to prevent it from posing a danger to the region's gas and oil operations. But once it reached international waters, they no longer considered it their problem and released it to the open ocean. Just days later, witnesses spotted the Liubov Orlova roughly 290 miles from Newfoundland. Less than a month after that, an emergency position indicating radio beacon, EPIRB, from the ship was received from 700 miles off the coast of Kerry, Ireland. An EPIRB device must be exposed to water before it starts transmitting signals, leading officials to believe the Liubov Orlova probably sank. In 2014, rumors claimed the ship was spotted off the English coast and that it was infested with rats, but these claims were debunked. It's unclear what happened to the vessel, but it's unlikely that it's still aimlessly drifting and hasn't gone under after all these years. Number 1. Kodiak Queen. The US Navy fuel barge Kodiak Queen first took the seas in 1940. World War II had been going on since the previous year, but America had not yet become officially involved. Kodiak Queen was present during the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941 and is thought to be one of only 5 ships that survived. The attack marked a major turning point in the conflict by prompting the United States to join the Allied effort to defeat the Axis powers. After the war ended, the Kodiak Queen was refitted as a fishing vessel, and it remained in use for several decades before ending up in a junkyard. Historian Mike Cochran rediscovered the historic ship in 2012, by which point it was already in pretty rough shape. He launched a campaign to stop it from being scrapped or left to rot. Cochran's efforts caught the attention of British photographer Owen Buggy, who suggested sinking the Kodiak Queen as an underwater art exhibit and artificial reef. The idea was well received, and a sculptor got to work creating a sculpture of the legendary Kraken sea monster wrapped around the ship, as if it were dragging it into the sea. The ship and sculpture were submerged in 57-foot deep waters off Virgin Gorda in the British Virgin Islands in 2017. Later that year, the region was hit by catastrophic hurricanes, and both the Kraken and the Kodiak Queen survived. But they were damaged by massive swells that swept the exhibit 30 feet away from its original location. Thankfully, the display remained in good enough condition to serve its purpose as a habitat for marine life, and it has become a popular diving attraction. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.